Section 6, Universal Basic Income. We can't get universal basic income without an automation annuity. The need for universal basic income is frequently stated because many people fear that machines are taking so many jobs that increasing numbers of humans will be without enough income to care for themselves. Most UBI proposals are poorly defined schemes that do not specify how the UBI will be funded and do not consider inflation or other consequences. An example is from a June 5, 2016 BBC newscast reporting a vote in Switzerland on a proposed monthly UBI amount of $2,555 for adults and a quarter of that for children. No funding details were specified. Swiss voters rejected the proposal by 77% to 23%. Some small trials with UBI for select groups in various nations have addressed one big concern. Will people stop working once they receive UBI? The answer is no. Most people receiving UBI continue to work. The lack of universal basic income success comes from a surprising deficiency, a proper number. The number of dollars per month that UBI advocates request is usually a round number pulled from thin air. Thus far, they have tried to finance UBI from a very unpopular source, increased taxes. The number selected is not related to the economy. Instead, it is loosely associated with an estimate of perceived need. There are no provisions for increasing the amount over time. If UBI advocates switch to automation annuity progress dollars from the production parabola, they might attain instant success. Automation annuity progress dollars have a number of dollars per month that is equal to the wages lost to machines. The problem with arbitrary UBI numbers is that we get demand pull inflation if they are too high. If they are too low, we reduce economic activity. The GDP per person drops. If we continue waiting to implement UBI, the economy will get smaller and smaller, and so will the UBI annuity. 2. Automation annuity progress dollars are tied to the economy. Every time technology replaces humans, the UBI rises. Automation annuity progress dollars are not funded by tax increases. Automation annuity progress dollars are taken from an account that must never be repaid. Automation annuity progress dollars do not cause inflation. They are raised until a minor amount of demand pull inflation is observed. At that point, increases in the automation annuity are paused. Automation annuity progress dollars do not require a large bureaucracy to determine who gets how much. Instead, every adult citizen receives the same monthly amount. Automation annuity progress dollars do not cause individuals to quit working like welfare. With welfare, you lose benefits if you go back to work. The automation annuity creates no such disincentive to find employment because you get the same level of UBI progress dollars regardless of how much you earn on your job. Automation annuity progress dollars provide an instant flow of money once the automation annuity is adopted. This immediately benefits young people by giving them money to help fund their higher education, start a business, or get married. The modest amount of money would greatly help seniors struggling to survive on Social Security. Note that converting the automation annuity to an amount great enough for some to consider it universal basic income will take several generations. Each increase in the automation annuity must be earned by increased production capacity and wise demand management using buyer's market economic theory. Section 7. Magic orange feature of progress dollars. In this section, we will explore an additional opportunity to strengthen our economy using what I call the magic orange feature of progress dollars. To understand this concept, let me share a story of how it was conceived. One afternoon while driving home from the golf course, my wife called and asked me to stop by one of our favorite restaurants to pick up some carryout. I arrived during a lull, after the lunch rush but before dinner, and found the place nearly empty. Only the manager and a few staff members remained. I placed my order at the bar and struck up a conversation with the manager, someone I'd spoken to on several previous visits. I asked, "Would it be okay if I ask you a question?" "Sure," he replied with a smile. "I'll do my best to answer it." "Imagine," I began, "that I have magic oranges. You can buy them for 10 cents each and sell them for $1. That's a 900% profit." "Sounds good so far," he said. "Now here's the catch," I continued. "These oranges are magical because they contain every vitamin, nutrient, and calorie a person needs for an entire month. A customer needs only one orange per month to survive. Would you sell them?" He didn't hesitate. "Heck no, I'd go broke." The moral of the story is simple. Some innovations, while incredibly beneficial to society at large, can be disastrous for individual entrepreneurs who operate under a profit-maximizing model. In the manager's case, the ultra-affordable Magic Orange would drastically reduce both customer visits and total sales. Fewer visits mean fewer tips, less staff, and reduced gross volume. Even though society benefits immensely, think of how much food insecurity would be eradicated. The restaurant would suffer. This is where macroeconomics must step in. I define a magic orange in economic terms as an investment of progress dollars that does not generate inflation and is used for goods and services that benefit the entire economy. Most magic oranges would be deflationary, meaning they reduce prices overall. This deflation, however, also reduces wages and consumer income in the short term, necessitating additional progress dollar distributions to stabilize demand. As we enter 2025, several financial issues loom large in America. Rising national debt, increasing interest payments, ballooning student loan burdens, and the eventual insolvency of the Social Security Trust Fund. The magic orange concept can help with each of these. Social Security solvency. A one-time infusion of progress dollars into the Social Security Trust Fund would stabilize it without increasing taxes. This transfer would not be inflationary because the benefit payouts follow existing schedules and eligibility rules. Education reform. Progress dollars can be used to create a free, federally operated online university offering both academic degrees and vocational training. This deflationary investment would slash student debt burdens, lower the cost of higher education across the board, and ultimately require an increase in automation annuity payments to maintain consumer demand. Pandemic response. In times of nationwide emergencies, like the COVID-19 pandemic, progress dollars can be issued directly to adult Americans to sustain demand and prevent economic collapse. These payments would be over and above the standard automation annuity checks. Reimbursement of past stimulus. The federal government can use the progress dollars to reimburse itself for stimulus payments made during the pandemic, thereby reducing debt and interest costs over time. For a program or investment to qualify as a magic orange, it must meet two key criteria. It must produce deflation or at least be neutral in terms of inflation. It must have a massive nationwide economic impact. Let's examine a few proposals that do not meet these criteria. Natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, wildfires. While devastating, these events are typically local and do not meet the nationwide impact requirement. Contagious disease. Most outbreaks are localized or managed through existing healthcare systems. Only in exceptional cases like COVID-19 do they reach the scale required for Magic Orange classification. Healthcare programs. Programs like Medicare do not qualify because healthcare costs tend to rise over time, creating inflation rather than deflation. Defense and research spending. These are usually inflationary and are already handled through appropriate taxpayer funding. They do not qualify for progress dollar investments. The ideal Magic Orange initiatives reduce the prices consumers pay for essential goods and services. This leads to a drop in wages and business income in the affected sectors, which can be offset through increases in the Automation Annuity. The outcome is a healthier economy where citizens have both lower cost and higher disposable incomes. After reaching cruising altitude with the Automation Annuity, we can expect increases of $20 to $25 per month per adult citizen each year. These gradual boosts will sustain consumer demand while ensuring continued prosperity in the face of deflationary innovations like the Magic Orange. This dual strategy, reducing systemic cost while increasing personal incomes, is the cornerstone of a smart, adaptive 21st century economy powered by progress dollars. Section 8, Comparison of Seller's Market and Buyer's Market Economics. Economic concepts for both sides of the production parabola. Now the seller's market, this is when we had too many dollars chasing too few goods, and this represents the period in time from 1800 to the year 2000. And the buyer's market is when we have too few dollars chasing too many goods, and that's the time period from 2000 on up to current times. Okay, seller's market, we have too many dollars chasing too few goods. Buyer's market, too few dollars chasing too many goods. Macro economic concept is supply and demand. We've heard that phrase all our life. But the macroeconomic concept now should be, in the buyer's market, demand and supply, because demand now controls, not production capacity. From the micro standpoint, that's like businesses, corporations. If you have a household, that's microeconomics. Running a county government, a city government, a state government. Those things are, well, that's what microeconomics is. Macro is the nationwide economic policies. In the micro side, supply and demand, and we can just stay with supply and demand again. The businesses, there's really no change in those things. Free market competition, that's what we used to have, and we still do today. We want to have free market competition. Cost push inflation, yep, and we still have that today. That's what COVID was, and when the Fed raised rates in a deflationary buyer's market, that was cost plus inflation. And when the corporations did price gouging during the COVID time period, that was also a cost push inflation. Back in the seller's market, we used to get long-term demand pull inflation. It wasn't that the people were rich, and they did have too many dollars relative to small production. It's that the production wasn't all that big. Now we get buyer's market low demand inflation. This is a new concept. In a buyer's market, we have too few dollars chasing too many goods. So the factories have to cut back on production. When they do, they have to amortize the fixed cost across fewer items, and that raises the cost on each item, and that gets passed along to the retailer and then to the customer. That is buyer's market, low demand inflation. Back in the seller's market, the Fed fought inflation by raising interest rates. There's no more interest rate increases. They're just not needed. We already have too few dollars. We don't need even fewer dollars. In the seller's market, there were no progress dollars. Now we get automation annuity progress dollars. Back in the seller's markets, the jobs were shifting to new sectors. They went from the farm, then to manufacturing, and then to the service industry. Well, the service sector's been losing jobs rapidly, and the other two sectors have already lost a lot of jobs. There's less than 2% in farming, and there's only 19% in manufacturing, and 79% are in the service sector. And there's a big red bullseye on that sector. In the buyer's market, we need an automation annuity to sustain demand. It's a highly deflationary time now. Without the automation annuity, we'll be going downhill very rapidly. Microeconomics perspective. From a microeconomic standpoint, the strategies of individual business owners and corporations change little between a seller's and a buyer's market, regardless of which side of the production parabola we are on. Every business and investor still prioritizes one thing: the size and purchasing power of their customer base. During a seller's market, growth opportunities are plentiful. The economy is booming, and businesses strive to increase supply to meet overwhelming demand. Most investment opportunities appear promising, and risk-taking is rewarded by rising valuations and expanding markets. Conversely, in a buyer's market, businesses are forced into a defensive posture. The focus shifts from expansion to cost cutting. There is an overabundance of goods, but far too few consumers with the money to buy them. Investors become highly selective. Safe assets like gold or bonds become attractive. Money flows away from typical consumer businesses and toward niche sectors that profit during downturns, like bankruptcy services or discount retail. But these narrow safe havens get overpriced quickly, causing broad devaluation of most investments. In this environment, even the wealthy are threatened by demand collapse. Therefore, even those in the top 1%, as well as pension funds managers responsible for the retirement security of millions, have a vested interest in restoring consumer demand. Supporting the automation annuity is actually in their financial self-interest. Macroeconomics perspective. In macroeconomic terms, the difference between sellers and buyers market economics is foundational. In a seller's market, the classic model of supply and demand placed emphasis on expanding production capacity. This made sense when consumer demand was reliably strong and increasing. The economic goal was to innovate, build, and scale. Wealth creation was tightly tied to building better products faster and cheaper. The slogan of the mid-20th century industrial age, "Progress is our most important product," used by General Electric, reflected this mindset. Economic expansion meant hiring more workers and producing more things. Demand naturally followed. But by the year 2000, we had crossed the apex of the production parabola. Machines had advanced to the point where massive segments of the labor force were being displaced. Consumer demand began to shrink because wages, the source of most purchasing power, were being systematically replaced by automation. The slogan of the new era became, "Who do these corporations think is going to buy their stuff after they lay us all off?" The automation of labor does not automatically reassign displaced workers to new industries. In the early 20th century, farm workers moved into factories. Later, factory workers moved into services. Today, however, the service sector is also being automated. From fast food kiosks to legal document review to AI-driven healthcare diagnostics, fewer human workers are needed in any sector. Without the automation annuity, societies face two choices: accept massive unemployment and social destabilization, borrow money perpetually to artificially stimulate demand. Most nations, including the United States, have chosen the second path, massive government spending. But that strategy has limits. Rising national debts and interest payments threaten the long-term stability of borrowing. Eventually, the cost of interest alone begins to crowd out essential public services. And in 2025, we're living that right now. This is why both President Trump and Elon Musk, prominent figures from the business world, face a no-win dilemma. Fiscal conservatives want to cut government spending to control debt, but doing so further reduces national demand, worsens economic contraction, and risks deepening the buyer's market recession. Historically, the last time the United States was in a sustained buyer's market was during the Great Depression. That crisis was driven by agricultural automation, which displaced a large world workforce and cut consumer demand. President Herbert Hoover worsened the problem by raising taxes to cover shortfalls in revenue, triggering even deeper reductions in spending power. The recovery came only through massive World War II government spending and the transfer of agricultural workers into industrial war production. Today, that playbook no longer works. Agricultural employment is already under 2%. Industry accounts for less than 20% of employment. Services, the final refuge of the working class, make up over 79% of employment, and that sector is under heavy pressure from AI and automation. We are once again in a buyer's market with no viable new sectors to absorb displaced workers. The result is a feedback loop of wage suppression, reduced consumer spending, and economic stagnation. Declining consumer demand means declining wealth and income for most of society. Median home buying age has increased by a full decade. Young families cannot afford homes, leading to declining birth rates. Without intervention, the middle class cannot sustain itself. We are entering a future in which the rich may own the machines, but no one will be able to afford the products. The only way forward is to abandon seller's market economic thinking. Cutting spending or raising taxes will not work. We must embrace buyer's market economics, replacing lost consumer demand with progress dollars delivered directly to citizens through the Automation Annuity. This is the new economic reality. The war between the classes is over. The rich have already won. The only remaining question is whether they will also destroy the very system that allowed their wealth to exist in the first place. The Automation Annuity is our last best chance to ensure that technology becomes a shared blessing, not a curse that impoverishes the many while enriching the few. Please go to part 4 of 4 to see sections 9 and 10.